Born Christmas Eve of 1879, came one of the most bravest fighters to ever don the mitts in the art of pugilism. His name, Fireman Jim Flynn. Like a modern day Rocky Balboa, he would get up from the most severe punishment and beg his opponents to bring it on a little more. The man was absolutely fearless. Born with one of the most cast iron jaws of all time. It's almost as if he had a metal plate in his head, making himself able to absorb astronomical amounts of punishment. The man was a modern ring marvel. He would rush his opponents from the onset. From the very first bell, he went after them immediately, giving them no space whatsoever to make any type of moves or to get set whatsoever. Up in their grill was how he fought. He would rush 'em from post to post and get in their face as dramatically as he could. Jim Flynn, the only man in the entire world to knock himself out. Not only did he try and knock out all his opponents, he even managed to knock himself out. The event, Sam Langford, number 3, the third fight. Totally exhausted and out of energy, a bloody mess. Like a Rocky Balboa, he took a swing for his opponent, Langford, who ducked, and onto the floor fell Flynn, completely hammered as his head bounced off the floor and he knocked himself unconscious. Only as he stood there and laid in a pool of blood did the referee declare him out. The only man in pugilism history to knock himself out. An absolute feat that very, very few could I and only hope to accomplish. The fighter who brought blood from Sam Langford and Jack Johnson. Both of them he brought blood from. He left Langford an absolute bloody mess in their second fight as he got one of the biggest wins of his entire career. Absolutely fearless was Jim Flynn. Twice he fought for the heavyweight title. Twice he failed. But did it discourage Jim Flynn? No. He continued to fight heavyweights even though he was giving up 15 to 20 pounds per match sometimes. Just a 5'10.5", 180-pound fighter fighting heavyweight White Hope giants that weighed well into the 200 pounds, giving up astronomical amounts of weight. But did Jim Flynn care? No, he didn't. Was he discouraged by his loss to Jack Johnson? No, he wasn't. And even on Jim Flynn's deathbed, he said he could defeat death once again. He had one good fight left in him, he said, on the morning that he died. Even at the very end, Jim Flynn was picking fights with anybody that would listen. In this case, it was death. And death won as Jim Flynn died later that day. 45 years old. He only lived to be 10 years past his last fight that he fought. Just an absolute fighting man of the ring. one of the bravest soldiers to ever don the mitts. Fireman Jim Flynn. He was Rocky Balboa of his day. Jim Flynn. He would enter into towns riding his motorcycle like some type of renegade outlaw. Always an entertainer, Jim Flynn was. And these are the words of Jack Curley. And as he described Jim Flynn after he died. Curley had a genuine fondness for the fireman because of Jim's tremendous fighting heart and his picturesque personality. At one time, Curley probably honestly believed that Flynn could win the heavyweight title, and to this day of his death, Jim stoutly insisted that the police had no right to interfere in his fight for the championship against Jack Johnson in Las Vegas 20 years ago next July 4th. Jack Curley thinks that Jim was one of the very gamest glove gladiators that ever laced on the fighting shoes, and an opinion in which all those who saw Jim in his heyday must agree. So far from being affected by his knockout at the hands of Langford, Flynn fought on to the title bout with Johnson. The fireman always welcomed a match with a black opponent because he had an idea that he went into the ring with some sort of psychological advantage of the black. He fought over a dozen battles with the best colored heavyweights of the time, including 2 with Johnson and 3 with Sam Langford. Jim was 33 years old. He went on to fighting for 11 years thereafter, meeting very toughest men in the land. He spoiled many a championship hopes besides the great Dempsey. He was long past his fighting prime when he flattened a Manasseh Mauler with one punch. And Jim Flynn will always be remembered as one of the greats to ever don the mitts in the ring. Thanks for listening. If you want a more comprehensive look at Jim Flynn's career, please click on the video link.